Today, the 19th of Elul, is the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the passing of my grandmother. Great-grandmother, I'm sorry. Great-grandmother, not my grandmother. My grandmother's mother. Her name is Golda Bas. I think her father's name was Israel, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, we'll dedicate and learn to her memory. Okay, so we're back to the proceeding of the Sotah. So we've already described the dispute as to whether the water has to be living waters, that is, water that has never been used before, never been manipulated by man, it comes directly from a spring. That's Rabbi Shmuel's view, who said that the wash basin in the temple, the kiyar, was actually attached to and the water was derived from a natural spring. And in his view as well, the vessel also had to be new, never used. The earthenware vessel never had to be never used. Whereas the sages say the water in the wash basin is not fresh water, did not come directly from a spring. It was collected water. And likewise, the vessel did not have to be brand new, so long as it wasn't blackened. As long as it's clean, even if it's been used before, it's still okay.
So Rabbi Shmuel said that
new vessel and untouched water.
Okay, new and fresh.
Right, untouched water and new vessel. Sages, water has got to be clean, but not necessarily never touched before. The vessel's got to be clean, but not necessarily never used before. Could have been not a reused vessel. Okay.
Not black.
Sorry?
Not black.
Yeah,
black.
not blackened vessel and not dirty water. So now that he has his vessel, now he's got to go get the earth. Now he's got to go get the earth. So first, the Gemara tells us when he enters to go get the earth, he turns to the right. Mishnah said, quote, Nichnas lahechol, he enters into the heichal, the chamber, the inner, right? I mentioned in the past that the temple is structured, that you go from east to west, and as you go east to west, you enter rooms that are progressively more holy. So you go from the Azara, the courtyard, into the heichal.
The heichal is the sanctuary?
Sanctuary, yeah, that's the right word. That's the word I was looking for.
I make that comment about the track next to the altar, southwest corner of the altar.
That's not the heichal.
Not in the heichal.
It's not the heichal, right? It's outside the heichal. Yeah. So he enters into the heichal, which is the sanctuary, and he turns to the right, and he goes to there where they have the.
So if he turns to the right, he's facing north, right?
He's heading west, so he turns to the right, he's facing north.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there he finds, as the Mishnah described, and we'll talk about more.
So it's by the bread, where they have the bread.
I suppose, yeah.
Perhaps, I mean, not as west as that.
So he turns to the right, and there he finds the a handle that's attached to a marble slab, lifts up the handle with the marble slab, takes earth from there, and puts it into the water. So we'll describe more about the earth in the next section. But here the Gemara discusses why it is he turns right. So it says the Gemara, my timer, what's the reason why he turns right? To Amar, because we've been taught. Master said, it's been taught to us as a principle, called Pina Shatapina, any turns that one must turn, La you, they should be nothing other than Ella Derech Yamin, only toward the right. This is the halacha, that when a person has to enter a certain location and return from that location, so he's going to be doing a full circle, so he can go to which way he wants. And the halacha, therefore, is that he should go to the right. He should go in such a way that he's going to the right. This is true of entering a temple. This is true of going onto the altar. This is true of even getting an aliyah. When a person gets an aliyah, and the person was following the law in the proper sense, the person would be entering to the left side of he should come to the left side. He should make a full circle around the bima, around the stand, and when he does so, he's turning right as he does it. Like when we do hakafas at Simchas Torah, you can go clockwise or counterclockwise, right, to do a full circle. So if you're going to go to the right, you have to go clockwise. So that way you're always turning right. Likewise, when you take 3 steps back from Shemona Esrei, the first step should be your right foot. All kinds of customs and laws related to this principle that every time you turn to the right. Put on your shoes, start with the right one. sleeves, so all kinds of things like that are right come first. So just to dig a little deeper into the Kabbalah behind this idea of turning right.
Is that only if you're doing a complete circle, or is it?
In general, if you have the option, go right. And this is what I'm going to get to, right?
Yeah,
If you have a destination, and the destination requires that you go left, you're not required to go around the block, so you're turning right. That's not what it's saying here. You have a destination, and the destination is such you have to go left, right? Tefillin's on the left, whatever it is. When you have the option, though, to go either right or left, then you have to go right. When it could be either or. That's seemingly the halacha, especially as it relates here. Why is he turning to the right? He's turning to the right because he has to go to that tablet, which has the handle. So it almost sounds like, why is he going to the right? Not because the tablet, not because the hatchet, is that the word? Like the ratch. Right, the handle with the opening. What's that called? Isn't that a hatchet?
Hatchet is an axe.
Hatchet is an axe. A ratchet? What's it called when you have like a capsule that has a cover on top that you pull up?
Trap.
Yeah, there's a word for it. Anyway, not because it's there that he's turning to the right. Top. So not because the opening is up to the right. In other words, the Mishnah could have said, why does it turn right? Because that's where the opening is. That's why he turns right. No, he turns right because all turns must be the right. It's almost as if we could have chosen where that opening is to get to the earth. We could have put it on the left or we could have put it on the right. And the Mishnah is saying, put that tablet on the right so that when you enter, you make a right because you have to, when you have the option, you should choose right rather than choose left. So what's the Kabbalah behind this? So in Kabbalah, we have in the Sefiros, in the divine system of attributes, it's divided into 3 lines, kavim, 3 kavim.
3 what?
Lines. If you ever seen a diagram of the 10 spheres, you ever seen a diagram of 10 spheres with the lines going in all directions? Yeah? Ever seen the diagram? There's a Kabbalistic diagram that has the spheres, and each sphere, each attribute is represented by a circle, and these circles are situated in 3 lines: right, left, middle. Middle being a little lower than the right and left. So you have right chesed, left Gevurah, bottom center tiferes, and then likewise again, bottom right netzach, left hod, bottom center yesod, under that malchus. If you back up to the intellect, you have right chachma. Let me just finish. If you back up a little bit further, you have in the intellect, you have right chachma, left bina, and bottom center das. It's always built like that: right, left, center, in the middle. Yeah, what do you want to say?
Can you just repeat what you just said, because I'm trying to write it down and keep up.
Oh, so you have
Like this.
exactly like that. Hod, and then yesod in the middle, bottom. And if you back up, on top of chachma, chesed, gevurah, tiferes, you have chachma, bina, das, right, left, center.
In the middle of it, right in here.
Das, chachma, bina, das, chesed, gevurah, tiferes, netzach, hod, yesod, and malchus.
Okay.
So you have right, left, and center. Right represents giving, flow, openness, expansiveness, that kind of expression, and that kind of personality. Like we had this last week in Tanya, this idea of different personalities that come from different levels. If someone's soul is derived from divine sephiros, and depending where their soul is derived, that will shape their personality. So you have people who come from the chesed side, from the right side. They are by nature giving, expansive, open, sharing. That's the kind of people they are. And then you have people on the other side, the left side. Left side is not bad, God forbid. We're talking about divine spheres. They're not bad.
What is left? Left is the arts.
Well, we're going to hear. The left side is discipline, constraint, discretion. These are all very good qualities. Being a disciplined person is a very good quality. Being restrained, holding back when a person has an urge, very good quality. Discretion is a very good quality. Not everybody has to know what I do when I serve God. I serve God quietly, discreetly. So you have virtues on both sides, but they're different, they're opposites in their personality.
Which side is severity, sir?
The left.
Left. Okay.
Yeah. Right side, giving, open, sharing, expansive. Left, retreat, constraint, disciplined, discretion, and that kind of thing. If you will, it's introvert or extrovert. There's no inherent reason to assume that the introvert or the extrovert is more valuable than the other. It's just different personality types. And even the introvert is okay having conversations with other people. But it's not just one-time open conversations. It's going to be disciplined, it's going to be one-on-one, it's going to be meaningful, it's going to be directly head-on. Whereas the extrovert, the open, expansive person is going to talk to whoever's there and whoever's available to talk and share and open, different personality types. That's the right and the left. Yeah. The same thing is true, by the way, if you back up to the intellect too. Chachma and Bina, right? So Chachma, as we talked about in the past, is insight, awareness, it's creativity. That's the guy on the right side who's open, sharing, creative ideas are always popping into his head. Whereas the guy on the left, who's disciplined, constrained, discreet, that person is very good at analysis. Not necessarily coming up with ideas, but very good at analyzing ideas and saying why and how and where it's going to work and where it's not going to work, putting the parameters on these ideas. So that's the other side of the brain, right? The Bina, the left side. I'm not talking about right hemisphere, left hemisphere of the brain. I'm talking about right and left in terms of the spheres, the divine spheres. Okay. Then there's the middle. And the middle is a combination of the two sides. Combining chesed and gevurah, you have the middle, you have tiferes. Combining openness and discipline, you have in the middle compassion. Why is compassion a combination of giving and discipline? But even as I'm going to explain in a moment why compassion is a combination of both giving and discipline, we're going to see that it's slanted to the right. As you would assume, compassion is closely linked, we would think, more closely linked to giving, kindness, than it is to discipline, right? But it has an element of discipline in it, and I'm going to explain why. Compassion is a combination of both giving and discipline, about openness, about chesed and gevurah, kindness and strength. It is a combination of both. But in so doing, it leans to the right. And that would perhaps be the meaning of the Gemara here. And whenever you're turning, you turn to the right. When there's required left side discipline, because that's your destination. When there's required right side giving, it's giving. But when you're in the middle, lean to the right. So let's explain how Rachamim, compassion, is a combination of right and left, but it leans to the right. This is, by the way, from a few days ago, last week, Tanya.
So we're doing wrong in the Seder, and they have to eat the matzah.
We lean to the left of the matzah because of the health issue, because of where your food pipe is, and you don't want to, God forbid, choke. That's the main reason. Just a practical issue. Right?
You digest because you're living on the left. You feel it.
Yeah. So here's why compassion is a combination of both right and left. I think I've used this example before, but it's worthy of reiterating and thinking about it again to really get this clear. And if we have this clear in our minds and our fingertips, then every time we look at the words chesed, gevurah, and tiferes, and chassidus, we'll have an easy time understanding it. So the person who's on the right, left, and middle, all three of them give to others. All three of them give charity, but they give in very different ways. The person who gives because he's open and expansive and giving almost ignores the recipient. It's not relevant to who he's asking. I just give, like the extrovert. It's not relevant to who I'm talking to. I just like to share. Right? So same thing with tzedakah. There are certain people, they have a standard amount of money they give to whoever comes to their office. Doesn't matter who, what they need, why they're asking. Doesn't matter. Standard check because I give. I give. $180 to every person who walks into my office. The guy who's gevurah, the guy who's in the discretion, the guy who's on the discipline side, the extrovert side, the introvert side, is also giving, also talks to others, but he chooses who he talks to, and he chooses who he gives to, depending on the need. So this guy, when someone comes into his office and asks for money, he doesn't just give a check. He asks, how much do you need? Why do you need? Do you have a job? Are you looking for a job? So it may end up turning out that the guy on the discipline side will give more than the guy on the chesed side. Because the chesed side gives a blank check, $180 to each guy. But if the guy on the Gevurah side finds out that the person he's talking to needs much more, he'll give much more. Like the introvert versus the extrovert. The extrovert talks to everybody, sharing, likes to share. But the introvert does not like talking to everybody. But when they find someone they're going to talk to, they'll talk much deeper and much more than the guy who's the extrovert. Because of the discipline and because they take into consideration the recipient, they end up talking more when necessary or giving more when necessary.
Funny that when we watch
There's box of tissues now.
on Sunday nights when we watch
The video.
If people just walk by the Rabbi, he gives them $1.
Yeah.
But you stop and talk to him, he gives you $1, and then he give you another $1.
Yeah. Depending on the situation, right?
Yeah.
So again, you have these two types of giving. One that gives without consideration for the recipient, because it's just a giving person. And then there's the left side, which gives only based on what the recipient deserves. So what's compassion? What's Rachamim? This person gives, but does not ignore the recipient. Otherwise, it's not compassion. Kindness can ignore the recipient. I'm just giving to you because I'm kind. Compassion doesn't ignore the recipient. Compassion is elicited by the recipient. So it has an element of Gevurah in there. It has an element of restraint. I'm not just giving wantonly. I want to hear your story before I give you. But when I give you, I'm going to give you more than you deserve because I have compassion. So it's got a combination of both right and left. It's got a combination of the Gevurah discipline. I want to hear what your story is. And if you don't give me a compelling story, I may not give you anything. But if you give me a compelling story and my compassion is aroused, I'm going to be leaning right and giving more than necessary. So there's the Rachamim. The combination between right and left ends up leaning to the right. So where's the first guy? The Chesed doesn't even ask who wants, just gives. The guy who's Gevurah restraint says, open your books, tell me how much you deserve. And the guy in the middle, the compassionate guy, doesn't tell me to open the books. He tells me, tell me your story. And if there's a story I can empathize with, I'll give you even more than you deserve. So it's got this combination of Gevurah and Chesed. It's got the combination of Gevurah in that it takes into consideration the recipient, but it leans to the right because I end up giving more than necessary.
It's true.
Right? So there you have, which when there's in our service of Hashem, when we have to have discipline, left side. When there's time to open giving an expansion. But when there's time for combination, lean to the right. Lean to giving more. Lean to doing more. When there's the requirement for some combination of both. Whenever you have to turn, you mean you got to turn right.
We used to go upstairs and people would come over with money. They'd show you their card and you give them a quarter, 50 cents. But one time a woman came in and she was crying, her baby is sick and she has no money. And
it's touched at the compassion. Because compassion is touched. That's right.
So
that's right.
We've seen it every time.
Yeah. Okay. So let's a few more minutes. Let's begin our discussion on the earth and the ground.
I don't know what's so special about the earth under that slate.
So let's see. So the Mishnah said, Makam Hayashab, there was a space over there, which was a cubit, a square cubit, a slab of marble, and a handle on top. The Kohen would lift it up, take earth from there and put it onto the water. So this comes from the fact that the verse reads as follows. Let me pull up the verse over here. Yeah, the verse reads. Yeah, so the Kohen should take holy waters. We talked about that a few days ago. Water from the wash basin, and then Bikli Cheres puts it into an earthenware vessel. We talked about that as well. And then it says, Umin ha'afar, and from the earth, Asher yiyeh bekarka mishkan, that exists or that is in the earth of the Mishkan. Yikach HaKohen, of the sanctuary. Yikach HaKohen, the Kohen shall take, Menosan alamayim, and he should put it on the water. Okay, so you have this description like this. Asher yiyeh, that's already there. And number two, where is it? Bekarka HaMishkan, on the earth of the sanctuary. Those are the two descriptions of where the earth comes from. Mina Afar Asher yiyeh, from the earth that is there. And number two, from the earth of the Mishkan. It says the Gemara like this. Tan Rabbanan, our sages taught and elaborating and trying to understand this verse. The verse reads, Umina afar, and from the earth, asher yiyeh, that is there. So if the verse would just say that, take from the earth that is there, without saying in the Mishkan, that's in the earth of the Mishkan, what would you say? Yachal, you would assume, you can prepare earth from outside, the yachnis, bring it into the sanctuary and pour on the water. If it just said, take the earth that's there, without saying that's there in the earth of the Mishkan, take the earth that's there, that would mean bring any earth there and use it. Doesn't have to go to the ground. Just take a bucket of earth from outside and just put it directly, once you're in the sanctuary, put it directly on the water. It doesn't have to come to the ground. But Talmud Sotah comes the verse and adds the karka mishkan. It's got to be from the earth of the Mishkan. Okay. Now, karka mishkan, had the verse only said, take earth from the ground, as opposed to take earth that's there in the ground, without the word that's there. Had the verse just said, take earth from the ground. So what would you think? Yachal, you would assume, you got to take a shovel and dig into the earth. So Talmud Sotah says the verse, asher yiyeh, take the earth that's there, not that you got to dig for. So how do I reconcile these two? That's there, easily accessible, but that's in the earth of the Mishkan. Where's the reconciliation? So how do I reconcile this? Says the Mishnah. Yesham, if there's earth readily available there on the earth, then have, take it. Good.
On the earth? You mean
on the surface, on the floor. Right? So there's earth there, take. And you fulfilled the entire verse. It's there, and it's the earth from the Mishkan. Good. But Ein Sham, what if there's no earth available there? You have to start digging. We already said before, you don't dig, because it's got to be asher yiyeh, that's there readily available. But the earth isn't readily available. There's a rock there. I don't know. There's something there. It's not readily available. What do you do?
Wait, can we just step back a minute?
Yeah.
How do we know that it's earth from the Mishkan?
The verse reads.
The word there?
The verse reads, take earth that is there from the earth of the Mishkan, the earth of the sanctuary.
Oh, it says.
Yes, but you have two different words. It could have written in two ways. It could have said, take earth that's there. Finished. Or it could have said, take earth from the ground of the Mishkan. It says both. Take earth that is there in the ground of the Mishkan.
So,
the word that's there implies easily available. In the earth of the Mishkan applies, even if it's not easily available, go dig for it.
okay.
Those are the two. So how do you have both of those? Right? Because there are two implications. They're not contradictory so much as they are.
Easily accessible one is not, you have to dig for it.
The first one is limited to if it's easily accessible. The second one is even if it is inaccessible. Meaning, it's right. So in other words, if it's easily accessible on the earth, on the surface of the sanctuary, then you've easily satisfied both parts of the verse. It's easily there, and it's the earth of the Mishkan. Good. But what happens if it's not easily available at the earth of the Mishkan?
It says take the earth from under the slab.
So what do you do? The Mishnah. What if there isn't?
No, it doesn't say
It
that.
says take the earth from under
The Mishkan travels, right? So one time you put it down, you look at the earth, there's rock there. You have no earth. What do you do now? So you have to dig with
all
it.
you need is a pinch.
Right, but what do you do? It's not there. What do? You have a floor. It's not there. So what do you do? So if the verse said, had the verse just simply said, take earth that's there and put it into the water, then you would say, take earth that's there, walk outside, take earth, bring it inside and put it in.
Oh, there.
That's one option. There just means easily available. Earth that's there. Finished. Wherever. Who cares? Right? But had the verse said, take earth from the ground to the Mishkan, then that would mean take your shovel, take your pickaxe, break the rock and get earth. But the verse combined both. You following?
How does that second verse imply that it's you have to dig for it?
Had the verse only said, take earth from the ground to the Mishkan, that would mean you cannot bring earth from anywhere else. It must be the ground of the Mishkan. And if it's not available, go dig for it. If there's a rock there, then break the rock and find earth because you have no other option. The verse says, take from the ground to the Mishkan.
Wasn't the Mishkan on the sand?
Unconditionally.
Wasn't it built on the sand?
But it's traveled around. And especially once it came to
I know
Israel.
what you mean. It means it has to only come from there. So whether it's
Correct.
there or not, you have to dig.
You got to dig and get it.
Yeah.
Whether it's available or not, go dig for
I
it.
understand.
That's right. The Mishkan traveled around. At some points it was in Israel. It wasn't built on sand at all. It was built on rock. In Shiloh, in Nov.
Yeah, no,
The Mishkan was
it's
in the
limited.
desert.
Also in Israel for hundreds of years, hundreds,
But
decades.
desert, it's only sand.
But it wasn't only the desert; it traveled around, right? And even Israel traveled around
But more importantly,
until King Solomon built the temple. It's hundreds of years after they came into Israel. They were using the Mishkan then in Shiloh and Nov and in Gevurah and all places.
the point is that it says there, so you have no other option. You have to dig it.
Just so again, there's two verses. Make this clear. It says the verse had two options. It could have said. Listen to the full. It could have said. Listen to the statements. Take earth that is there and put it in the water. Put it in the water. Option A. Take earth that's there.
Meaning anywhere.
Just listen to the end. Listen to the end. You'll hear. Just listen. Don't interrupt it. You'll get it. I promise. Just let me finish it. The verse could have said, take earth that is there and put it in the water. That would mean take any earth available to you and put it in. Option A. Option B is take earth from the ground of the Mishkan and put it into the water. That would mean even if it isn't readily available, go get earth from the Mishkan because you have no other option. That's option B. But the verse went with option C, both. The verse said, take earth that's there, that is in the ground of the Mishkan. So the first part, which says take earth that's there, means take earth that's readily available. And the second part of the verse, which says from the ground of the Mishkan, means take from the ground even if it's not readily available. So how do you satisfy both? Clear?
Clear.
Good. Which means, says the Gemara, how do you reconcile this? Yesham, if the earth is readily available at the surface of the Mishkan, how they take it? Because you satisfied both parts of the verse. It's readily available, and it's from the earth of the Mishkan. Because it so happens that the Mishkan is situated on earth, like you said, it's on the sand. So it's readily available, plus it's the surface of the Mishkan. Good, you satisfied both parts. But Ein Sham, what if there isn't any earth readily available at the surface of the Mishkan? What do you do now? The verse said it's got to be readily available, but it also said it has to be from the ground of the Mishkan. And there is no earth that's on the ground of the Mishkan readily available. What do you do? Answers the Gemara, Tein Sham. Put earth there. Go outside, take earth, put it on the surface of the Mishkan, and then put it in the water. That's it. Go outside, take a bucket of earth, dump it on the floor of the Mishkan, and then pick it up and put it into the water. And that way you've satisfied the verse. It's readily available, and it's from the surface of the Mishkan. Finished. That's the Gemara's explanation for how we find earth in the Mishkan. Clear?
I thought
Very good.
everything where things little puck.
Sorry?
I thought that everything where things little puck.
Yeah, it was. But you have to
Use a pinch of it.
yeah, but you still have to bring it from somewhere.
You don't need a shovel, you just need a pinch.
Right, but if it's rock, a pinch's not going to help you. You pinch the rock, and nothing's coming, right?
Does it have to be from that location, or could you have it on you?
This is what we're discussing.
Oh, sorry.
Precisely what we're discussing. Does the earth have to come from the ground or not, from the ground of the temple or not? Right? So it has to be A, readily available, B, from the ground and the surface of the Mishkan. So if the earth of the Mishkan happens to be such that it's easily takeable, good, go take it. But if it's not, it's a rock, and there's no readily available earth at the surface of the Mishkan, what do you do? Because the verse says it's got to be readily available. Answer, go outside, take some earth, put it down on the surface of the Mishkan, and then pick it up and put it into the water. There's the Gemara's discussion right now. But on Monday, we're going to see a countering view, which says, no, it does not have to be from the surface of the Mishkan at all. If you want, you can take earth from outside and dump it directly into the water without putting it on the earth first. That we'll get into, God willing, on Monday. Wonderful day and wonderful Shabbos. It's very important when you learn, like, especially when you're learning Gemara, where you have countering views.
Yeah.
You have to get the whole picture, because otherwise you can get stuck on what did you say, and then you miss the.
Yeah.
Well, let the whole thing play out, and then you'll see the details as they fall into the right place.
That's the beauty of the Gemara. They're telling you how it was all developed,
Yeah.
how this thing came together.
A lot of times I'm learning Gemara myself also. I'm like, I can't get through a certain word and I don't understand what it's saying. Just go to the end of the sentence and you'll see the whole thing and you'll understand what it's trying to get to. But if you get stuck at it becomes like crippling. You can't move forward because you're stuck at something. So see the whole picture, then you'll be able to get to it. Okay.
What's that saying? You can't lose sight of the
Forest for the tree.
Oh,
Yeah. A wonderful day and a good Ner Shabbos evening.
yeah.